Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm excited today, as I always am, because this is such a pleasure. But I have a connect. If you listen to Turmeric and Tequila, you know those are some of my favorites. And we are going to have a super interesting conversation today. If you've been listening this past month, I've had this running theme of conversation around high achievers and how we kind of wrangle our inner drive and inner desires. And this one is along those same lines. So universe is speaking right now. But I'm going to be welcoming Troy McTeer to the mic. He's the Anomaly Architect. Now, this is a lot to unpack. I'm going to read his bio really quickly, but as you know, I let my guests explain themselves in their own words, but this is a super fascinating bio, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. But here's a quick 411 on Troy. Troy is the secret weapon to the world's most successful entrepreneurs and ultra high performing individuals consumed with intense pressure to perform at the highest level. He is the Anomaly Architect, working exclusively with anomalistic industry leaders. I don't know if I said that correctly. Illuminating the illusions of their minds to destroy the addiction of mediocrity and conformity, leading them to achieve extreme mental and emotional prowess by unlocking their unique master sovereignty. He has the ability to see beyond the illusion of the mind, illuminating the truth and commanding conformity to leave its post. Troy, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. Let's unpack all of that.
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you. So well, what do you want to know from that? I'll unpack it.
I know it was. I'm not the best reader or louder, but it is. I comprehend what you're saying. But this is like you're speaking to my internal like competitive heart of like you're just. I mean, it's never really enough. But before we get into the minutia of the now, let's talk about the how. Like give me a little bit about young Troy, your background, and then we can get into how this all became what it is.
Okay, perfect. So I call myself the Anomaly Architect, and I work in the mental health to mental prowess space. And I went through, from a young boy, I suffered with depression and with anxiety from as young as I can. Not really depression, but anxiety. Being a very anxious child from very early on, always wondering if the doors were locked. We live in South Africa, so there's quite a bit of fear about security and safety. So I had this this absurd fear that someone's going to break in every night, and I would check the doors as like an 8-9-year-old. And I had this anxiety, and that just built and built. And when I got into sort of high school, up to about 14, 15 years old, I started to feel like this sort of depression. I didn't really enjoy school much, and I didn't understand what life was about. I didn't understand why I was doing or going to school. We wore uniforms at school too, which was a very conforming. Everyone's wearing a uniform, which I didn't understand. I don't know why I had to do that. And one day I asked my parents at the lunch table, I said, okay, guys, just tell me now, what is this life thing about? I'm going to go to school. I'm being like pushed. I was pushed to get pushed to get good grades. If I didn't get good grades, I was in trouble. Because the perception of society is that this child's not doing well, and you're not going to be able to get into a good university. So I wanted to know what this life thing was about. For me, working so hard and getting these grades, what is it going to get me? So I'd observed life, and I'd seen their friends and themselves, and that. So I said, okay, cool. So I work at school now. I get good grades. I get into a good university. I meet a woman there. I fall in love. I then graduate from the university. I did accounting and finance, and then I get a good job in a corporate that pays me a salary that I get 2 weeks leave a year, and then I get married, and then if I'm lucky enough, I make enough money that I get maybe a 2-week holiday. I can maybe go overseas, and then I come back and work again for someone else, have 2 kids, get a dog, get a nice house, pay a bond off. And then, go on holiday again, and then maybe climb the corporate ladder, and then become CEO perhaps, or start my own business. And when I'm older, and then retire to take all the money I've worked for, and then go and enjoy my life, and then die. And they're like, yeah, that's pretty much what life is about. And I was like, fuck that. This is not for me. And in that moment, I realized something about the people, even though it's my family, and they provided me with a great life, is that people will conform and they will do what everyone else has done to be safe and to make sure they don't upset the apple cart. And I didn't like that. I wanted to experience life to its fullest, even though I didn't understand that then. But I had this desire in me to experience life to the fullest. And I got constricted and constrained into a certain box. And I had to do certain things, get the good grades, go to university, must get married before 30, must do this, must have children. And I just didn't understand what the point of that was. I wasn't happy inside, but I did conform in order to make my parents happy, and to fit into society. And then when I got to university, I just decided this is not for me. I was doing accounting and I failed multiple times because I didn't enjoy it. And I was getting more and more depressed and I didn't know why. And I didn't go into any meds then, but I was in this state of like limbo and just doing this accounting degree and it was terrible. And I went to go work at an audit firm, auditing. And I'm not, if you know me, I'm not an auditor. Like I enjoy excitement. And then I was working at this audit firm. I found poker, which was earning me. Well, I learned about it first. I played money games, and I got very good at it. And I created like a part-time business for myself, like a side hustle for this job. And I was earning 8 times more playing poker monthly than I was from this job. So I was like, this is it, I'm done. So 6 months into this job, I decided that's it. And I resigned to play poker for a living, much to the dismay of my family and friends and people in the same industry as me. And oh my God, Troy, you're wasting your mind and all this crap. But it was my first sort of thing of rebellion. And then from that point, I started to sort of come into my own. And I was like, okay, what do I actually want to do? Started to ask myself these questions, but I had no idea. And I kept on trying. And eventually poker got the best of, the lifestyle got the best of me. I was put on massive amounts of weight. I was drinking too much, got involved in cocaine and got more depressed, and I was highs and lows, and then I left that. And then I hit a depression when I was working in property. And that's where I really sort of understood what depression was and how easily you could fall into it by conforming to a lifestyle or even rebelling. So I was rebelling, not from a place of power, but from a place of weakness, to show people like, fuck you. And that's not a good intention. So my life was this sort of conforming sort of life. And then I broke out and I still had this depression. I didn't understand why. And then that's what led me into a treatment center where I was put into 4 walls, literally. It was like a prison, or I put myself into this treatment center due to suicidal ideation, depression, clinical anxiety, all these diagnoses that they told me I had, which I later learned were just things that they need to tell you to put you in a box to give you medication. And for drug addiction, even though I wasn't addicted to drugs, there was also a label that they put onto me. I was just literally, I was living someone else's life. I was living a lie, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And through that process, in that state, I found out what I needed to do was take responsibility for myself. And it's the hardest thing to do because you have to be honest with yourself. Why is your life not working? Why is this not happening? Where do you actually want to go? And not just fit in and just tick a box and be in a job and get paid a salary and, live life and exist. I wanted to thrive. But my quest for thriving put me into deep depression, which I came out of very, very quickly compared to what they said I would. They said I'd be on meds my entire life, and I got off my meds after 10 months. And I was on some serious medication. I just didn't believe that it was good for me. And I went down a very dark place on that medication. So that's like my basic sort of background from a kid and this whole sort of depression and then understanding the mental health industry when I was in it. And this is why I've got to where I am now, where I want to revolutionize the mental health industry and just make the unconscious conscious of what is actually happening in the mental health industry.
Yes. Well, before we get into that, I want to ask a couple questions here because I think this is a really powerful story. And ironically, when you're talking about addiction and treating it, and the addiction runs in my family, so I've seen it up close and personal, and it's something I would wish upon no one, and even my worst enemy, because it's just so hard, particularly when it's something socially acceptable like food or alcohol or something that we do on the daily. So even though they were saying you were an addict and you weren't, on the flip side, I actually think conformity is an addiction, and it's living outside of those on Turmeric and Tequila, I say reality is nothing more than prescribed meaning. So that means, like, we call this chair because I was told it was a chair. That's a computer because it's told it's computer. So you bring that to a deeper level. This is happiness. Like, as you were saying, husband and a wife, 2 kids, a good job, and you vacation for 2 weeks a year, and that should be enough. Like, there's this very constructed reality of what we should be living. And to me, it's almost like when you get used to that and you start to get affirmations of like, good job, you got your degree, you got married, you got your kids. I think it can almost be an addiction to getting like those gold stars along the way. But a lot of people don't really check into their own well-being and happiness. And it's really, really hard. And I will consciously compare this to addiction, to break free of chasing that conformed idealistic. It sounds like as a young human, you were kind of like chasing your own path just as a kiddo, before we really know conformity or anything. Like, that's how you were. At what point did you really feel like, even being like in the 4 walls and blocked up, what was like the real turning point of like, this is not going to work for me and I'm going to go against the ingrained? Because even hearing, it's one thing to hear conformity run from your parents, but like now doctors are prescribing you things and they're telling you your truth. How did you like be in that pivot point to truly take hold of your own life? Was it like a full breakdown, or what was that turning point?
Look, so it was a series of events that led up to one event. And I think that, so me using drugs for years, me, trying to impress people, trying to get approval from people, me being depressed for probably 4, 5, 6 years, and I didn't even know about it. Because I thought I was just a bit sad because everyone else around me was complaining about the same things, but everyone's basically got a little bit of depression then. But if I can pinpoint a moment where I was like, okay, cool, this now has to change, was when I was in this treatment center, and I had checked in on the Friday night, and I actually asked if I could come back on Monday. I was like, this is terrible. I want to come back on Monday. And they're like, no, sorry, you in.
So can you do that?
Yeah, no, they're like it's the weekend, Paul, and you like to party, so you can't go anywhere. So and I was there for 3 weeks. So the first night I was there, I remember lying in my bed, and I shared with 2 other people, and well, not the bed but the room, and I started having what I found out later was a panic attack. I'd had panic attacks before, but I didn't experience it to this level. And what happened was, I thought I was going to die. I literally thought I was shaking. I had cold sweats. I didn't know what I was doing. And I walked out to the nurse's station and I said, listen, take me to the hospital. I'm dying. Like, there's something happening. My heart was beating so fast. And they looked at me and they laughed. And they're like, I've seen this before. You're having a panic attack. Just relax. And I was like, no, this is not a panic attack. I've had those before. And I fell to the ground and I was couldn't breathe, like sucking into my lungs. And I lay on the ground and it was going a little bit, you get those like little lights in your eyes. And I was like, holy shit, this is it. I'm going. Oh my God. And I looked up and there's about 8 to 10 people around me, just looking at me, people I don't know. And I'm in a foreign place on this cold floor, looking up at people. And when I said to myself, I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? There was nothing in my life that was so bad. These people around me looking at me, they've got some serious stories. They come from absolute abject poverty. And it was a humbling moment for me. And in that moment, I was like, I have to change something. They gave me a shot of Ativan in my bum. I relaxed, I calmed down. And from that moment, I was like, I have to do something. I did everything that they said to me in that treatment center, even though I don't agree with it now looking back. But in that center, I did the work and I took responsibility. And that's the pillar that I've used throughout my entire life and with my clients. The first step is to take massive personal responsibility and be honest with yourself. So I was honest with myself. I was like, you did this. No one else did this. Not the economy, not the government, not your mother, not your father, not a pastor, not your friends, no one. It's you. I'm responsible for my results in my life. So that moment for me was the turning point where I thought something has to change. Otherwise I'm going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard about these like breakthroughs, and I've actually never experienced a panic attack. I'm not really an anxious person. I do work out a lot because it's my business and kind of how I grew up. So I feel like that's always kept my mental health at bay. Or a lot of times I'm just so smoked I can't overly stress. But I will as life's gone on, and so I'm a 40-year-old single female entrepreneur. Like I'm kind of fighting a lot of these conformity things and I have for a long time. And at points in my life, I've had to be like, should I just get the full-time job? Am I going to regret this at 50 of never having kids or whatever? And so it's this constant battle. And I kind of go back to what I now call my spirituality and my own faith of like, you have to stay in alignment, because like that on a much more shallow level, my body, when I'm out of alignment of stuff, I carry it. Like I can tell I'll get sore throats. I'll get super tired. Like my body will physically react to me being out of alignment. I didn't understand it until about 5 years ago. And so it sounds like your body was literally like, that's it. Like we're either going to wake up, and it's however you diagnose this. Like I feel like our bodies and our minds, everything obviously connects. It will shut down where you can no longer handle it or fake it or put it all together. In that, so two parts to this question. Do you think your body, like it was a physical shutdown to like regain the mental? And part two would be like, do you have faith? Are you religious? Like, was there some underlying spiritual or faith in it that kind of had that awakening or supplemented it?
Yeah, so I think you spot on there with regards to my body shutting down. Like my mind was going through all this stuff. Like, oh my god, like what have I done? I've literally I almost lost my fiance at the time, my now wife, thank God. I was in this place, and I thought I'd lost my friends. I thought I lost my family. I thought I lost it all. And that constant like negative barrage of thinking, like my thinking was negative the entire time. So my negative thoughts, like your thoughts create your emotions, and your emotions are chemicals. So I was just flooded with cortisol and adrenaline and every other stress hormone you could think of. And I think you spot on there. My body shut down. And you're in that moment with regards to spirituality and faith. Yes, I've got a very strong spiritual practice, which I use, which is truth. So I use truth, but I'm not religious at all, because that's also conformity. And I was brought up Catholic, and I didn't understand why the Catholic people wouldn't see the Jewish people or the Muslim people as just people. There would be this divisiveness. And my whole thing is everyone needs to come together. So not a religious faith, but a spiritual faith in truth, and that we are given a gift to be in this world, and we've got a 400 million to 1 chance, I think, of being conceived. So that's what sort of played through my mind. Like, I've been given a gift. Why do you want to take your own life? And I was like, there's no point. Like, this is a gift. You've got to move through this. And that was the strength that I took in of like, you need to do this. And this is just part of your journey in this life. And I took life so seriously. Now I see life as a game. Before, I saw it as a struggle. And when you see life as a game, every obstacle is just the next level you have to get through to get to level 2, to level 3, to level 4. And you keep on growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. So that's what I use to sort of get through that.
I love that. For anyone that's listening, and I love that you just said it was like, because your mental does connect to your physical, and that's a whole other podcast on like how like cortisol releases and everything. But we'll stay in the shallow end of the pool for that. But long story short, again, your mental does impact physical and your emotions, and cortisol and truth has a frequency. So when you're outside of your truth, like you can literally feel it in your body. So even if you're not into the science or the woo, either side, I think anyone listening can know like when something just feels wrong. And if you just start there and understand that can be a good compass for your life of like, okay, let's pivot. Like this doesn't feel right. Let's pivot. Or you're like us, where I always say my varsity humans, we have to learn the hardest way. Like life has to take you all the way to the brink where it like fully kicks you in the face. And you're like, oh, okay, now I'm listening. Like now I get it. Because I think a lot of us will be like, I'll fix it. I'll try harder. I'll learn more. I'll take another hit. I'll go out for the party. We'll figure it out tomorrow. Like you'll just kind of keep surviving until the world, God, universe, Madonna, I always say, whoops you and says, no, this is it. This is your point to choose. And that's when I really do think that faith or spirituality comes in, because it's pretty remarkable that you said you had this negative running mindset. And then all of a sudden that, 1% or that 1 ounce of positive belief you had shined through and conquered everything else. And you could cling to that one positive thought to survive and to change.
Exactly. I think, and negativity is so interesting. You know that there are, I think there are double negative words in any dictionary compared to positive words, something like that. But negativity, we are programmed to keep ourselves safe, and we are programmed just to survive. Okay, and when you program to survive, you contract and you don't expand. And everyone has been living in fear for their whole lives, the last 18 months, whatever it is now, 2 years, I don't know. Everyone's been living in fear, and everyone's contracting. And when you're in that state of fear, you can't expand, you can't think, you can't be positive. I don't believe in positive thinking. I don't believe in affirmations either, because I don't believe affirmations are if you don't believe the affirmation, that thought doesn't get past your brainstem. So you need to do the internal work first to understand that belief that you think you are, like sitting in a one-bedroom apartment with a leaking fridge and no lights, you're going, I'm wealthy, is not going to make you wealthy. You need to change that belief about what you are good at and what you can implement, take action, and then you start to believe what you're saying. So the affirmation comes after the belief, then they start to work. But people get it the wrong way around. So, and they try and force it. It's like trying to force a habit. You can't force the habit. You've got to do the internal work first, and your conditioning, your belief inside your beliefs system. So in that moment, perhaps, yes, I had one sort of like shining spark of like, okay, I can get out of this. And this is a challenge to me. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it. And I never have been able to, but there was just something in me. It was probably survival. I was like, I'm not going to die. And like, what can I do with my life? And also in that moment, I was like, okay, I've got this far. Like, I'm done doing accounting. I'm done doing finance and property. I'm done doing what people want me to do that's perceived as being successful. What do I actually want to do? And in that moment, and then throughout that process, actually in the 3 weeks that I was there, I was helping people with their own stuff. Although I didn't know that I was doing it, I was being there. I was seeing them and hearing them. And that's the number one thing human beings need. And I don't think that I wasn't seen and heard throughout my life. Although, and I mean, my mother still doesn't really acknowledge me now, but I've got over that. It's not her fault. That's just how she is, right. But it's my responsibility now to just get over that and continue my life and just live it my way. Because I have to live in my body, no one else's. So when so in that moment, I also accepted myself. Okay, I fucked up. Okay, I've done these bad things. I've lost a lot of money. I've done some stupid things. I've said some really bad things. I've got myself in some really bad problems, but that's okay. Let me just own that shit and move forward. And once I owned it, and I showed my parents my life story, and like there was some deep stuff in there because you have to write this life story out about drugs and women and money, and I lost money and friends and lying and all this shit. I was lied my entire life. Now my number one value is like the truth. Like I can't live out of that truth. I'll tell people exactly what I think or believe, even if it means there's a massive fallout. And that's happened within my family and some friends as well, which is fine, because then you create space for the new as well. I don't know how we got there, but what question you did ask?
Well, I mean, we were kind of just like talking about deviating from all the negative and clinging to that one positive that can pull you through and put you on the right path. And I want to point that out specifically because I think right now in 2021, we have a lot of people pivoting in their job, in their career, questioning their why, questioning their core values. Because I think we've had a year basically to pause and be like, calm the busy and be like, oh shit, I'm unhappy. I hate my life. I don't want to be doing this job. Maybe I don't like my marriage, whatever it is. I mean, I've always kind of been on my own drum, my entrepreneur situation. So I've always kind of marched to the beat of my own drum, and I've gotten used to that. And that's taken some work over the years. Cause again, it was like fighting conformity, but I actually enjoyed quarantine and slowing down. Cause I was like, perfect. We can relax a little. Like we've been going 100 miles and I know my world continues. But what was cool for me to see is how many of my friends were getting out of the corporate world, were getting out of marriages, or were getting married, we're choosing to have a baby. Like everything kind of switched. And the baseline, which you so eloquently brought up, was really about core values and taking responsibility. And I don't know if you label it that way, but really getting in touch with yourself. And ironically, I've done a bunch of core value work, and my number one is honesty, like transparency. So truth, independence, and creativity. Those are my top three. So I've kind of let those lead. And I love that truth is like your number one, because even if it costs you everything and it costs you those around you, at least you're standing in what's real. And I think that's really, really hard for people to grasp. So tell me a little bit, if people are listening and they're kind of like, they're making a pivot, but maybe they haven't done core value work or taken personal responsibility. Tell me how you, I mean, it sounds like you had this awakening and it hit you, but tell me how you kind of took that responsibility. You said you wrote it out, shared it with your family, and then identified some of these core values or however you labeled it. How did you kind of get into your truth immediately? For anyone that's listening, do you have like a good step or a good like suggestion?
Yeah, I don't think there's like there's a one size fits all. It's about being aware and making new choices, essentially. It's about being aware and making the choice. Like, you can control your choices, you can control your beliefs, you can control your actions, and you can control your thoughts and your feelings. That's about all we can control in our lives. So it's thoughts, beliefs, actions, choices, essentially. Okay. So when you start to realize that there's nothing outside, like, we can't control quarantine, we can't control if they shut down, if the whole world becomes whatever, one world government and tyranny and all this shit, already whatever's going on, cool, it's going to happen, but how are you going to respond to that? Okay. Yes, you can say no in the meantime. Okay, let's not go there yet. But the thing is that you need to decide, or anyone needs to decide, what is important to them in their life, and they need to challenge their beliefs, because your beliefs that you have are not your own. The things that you are thinking are not your own. We've adopted and surrendered to other people's beliefs and ideologies. And the way that you do it by taking responsibility is, I think, this is it actually, is by interrogation, is by skepticism, by questioning your beliefs, questioning your actions, questioning your choices. And when you question it, you start to evolve and elevate into what I call, and what I do with my clients, the unlocking of original thought. Because everyone is outsourcing their thinking. And this is way before the pandemic, right? The government, whatever, is way before, but you outsource your thinking to your family, to your friends, to lecturers, to teachers. Everyone outsources their thinking. Instead of understanding and asking, what do I believe about this? Does that seem right? Does it feel right? Like you said earlier, you mentioned about the feeling. Like, if it doesn't feel right, it generally isn't right. There are some situations where, because your feeling comes through your filters and your conditioning and your values, that a situation might not feel right, but it is because of what you perceive someone to be. Okay. And you need to be able to connect to the feeling. Emotions are the most underrated part of the human experience. We live in emotions, and our quality of life is experienced by emotional states. So when you are giving things meaning, that is spitting out an emotion, that is creating an emotional state. So in order to step into your own truth, say whatever that is, because we all have a different truth. There is one truth, but no one knows what that is, because we all have different filters. You got to start questioning stuff. You got to start asking yourself, do I believe this? Do I like this? And then from that place of interrogation, you get original thought, and you get new meaning and new ways of looking at it. And then you got to implement that, and you got to stand by that and know that that is the truth, and be willing to change that as well, should you receive new information.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that that's so powerful. And I hope people listening can really embrace that and be able, the key piece, I think what you just said, is to stand in it. So just to relate to my own personal experience as an example, I had to filter some humans out of my world, and I've never been in that. I'm pretty laid back and I'm down with everyone. So it's hard for me to be like, we're not friends anymore, or with family, put up boundaries. It's really, really hard. And there kind of came to a point where it's like, well, shoot, I'm letting all these people and things go. It seems like a lot. Maybe it's me. Like, I'm the one common denominator. And then I think you have to revert back to your strength and your truth, and really understand that, like, no, this is truthfully out of alignment. And I think that's a constant check-in process, because it does get hard, because again, you're living outside of that conformity. So everything around you is telling you to go back to it, whether it's your ego and trying to keep you safe and keep you in the mix, or it's your family trying to get you to conform. Like, you constantly have to check back into that truth base of yourself, because the world or whatever will naturally, or you'll naturally want to be back to that conformative state. Is this something that's gotten easier for you to live outside of conformity, or kind of let go of family? Or is this something you have to check into and continue to sharpen the edge of that skill?
It's got easier. And I'll tell you why it's got easier. It's got easier because when I'm living the way that I want to, because I lived I lived someone else's life for my entire life until probably the last 4 or 5 years. When you start to live your life that you want to live, okay, your way, you create joy. You experience joy in the mundane. You don't need to go and experience something like a skydive or bungee jump or a top 5-star hotel or an island holiday or go to Hawaii or go to the Maldives you experience joy in the mundane. Now, that is for me the most important part of life. So my first value is truth, and then to have fun. And joy needs to be your North Star. And we come into this world as babies experiencing joy, okay? And a baby only cries when it's hungry or when it's wet itself, or if it's got gas. Otherwise, that thing is looking at every single thing, and they're smiling and they're laughing, they're giggling, and we've lost that as adults because we get conditioned and we get programmed into certain ways we should be. The child doesn't care what you think of it. A child doesn't care what you think of his tummy. A child doesn't care what you think of his nails, or if he has a spot on his face. Like, he doesn't care about that. And we get programmed to try fit in and get it and gain approval from people. So what we need to do is remember that joy is the highest vibration. Joy is the highest goal that you're trying to achieve in life. If you could experience joy every single day, and you can have joy every single day in the mundane, you're nailing it. And that's why it's got easier for me, because I don't believe conformity has any upside. I think people need to be individuals, and they need to own their individuality. I truly believe that mental illness is a symptom of conformity.
That might even be the title of our podcast. I think that is exactly what it is. I mean, to me, it's like an addiction. Like, we get pulled back into it, and it's so socially acceptable that everyone's doing it. So it's that slippery slope. So, okay, this is the perfect transition into everyone needs to be individuals. The Anomaly Architect. Tell me how each of us are. This is a Chanel painting, but I always say this is like the inside of my brain as a joke, but it's kind of close, just bright colors and designer stuff. But people forget how important it is to be that individual and our little idiosyncrasies that make us. I mean, it's each person as themselves, and you strip down all the conformed situations and conditioning. People are really fascinating. Tell me how you got into this Anomaly Architect, what that means, and tell me about the practice right now.
Okay, so obviously I went through my own mental health crisis issue, whatever you want to call it, and in then exploring my own mind and understanding what I'd done in my life and how the mental health industry had served me, I didn't see a place, or I didn't see any mental health treatment that could help these anomalies. So essentially, an anomaly is someone who's an outlier, who's like the mad or the crazy, and they've been labeled that by society because they've got different ideas and they're not conforming to a specific thing. Think about an Elon Musk, okay? I mean, he's the most extreme example, but in every single organization, company, family, school, there is an anomaly, someone that is pushing boundaries, testing new things. These people generally are can be very lonely, because they don't know who to speak to. Most of my clients, they can't even speak to their wives or their husbands about their ideas they have because that's too crazy for them. So these people I saw were dumbing down their genius, dumbing down their abilities, not sharing with the world, not sharing with their shareholders, not sharing with their colleagues, not sharing with their wives or their partners, nothing. So, and in so doing, they succumb to this mediocrity and conforming into mediocrity, like just going along with life and existing and being boring and life's good, I do this, it's fun, I've got a cool company, and these people then eventually would either end up in some form of depression, anxiety, distraction, whatever that may be, overworking, addiction, like using, numbing, essentially not addiction, but numbing, drinking, and these people are brilliant minds. And the truth is everyone has a brilliant mind. So my whole thing is that I'm going to change, or I'm working with these anomalies to be the architect of the one thing they're missing, which is mental prowess, mental and emotional prowess. They've done it all, the intelligence, they've got all the businesses, they've done it, but their life is empty because they don't understand their mind. And when you understand how the mind works and how we construct our entire reality inside our minds, it's a very important thing to learn about your thoughts and your emotions and your consciousness. And I take them from an unconscious place to a conscious place. So I build up their minds, I build up their thoughts, I build up their emotions. I help them not react. Like, my biggest thing is there's zero reaction. It is just a response. Because when you react, you're unconscious. And we may react to something like, say you shout at someone because they did something that you didn't like, okay? And you snap, right? And then in that moment, you go on a bit and you know that you've done something wrong. You've gone unconscious. You don't know it yet. But then 2 minutes later, you go, oh shit, I got angry. Oh God, right? And then what happens? You get guilty. So you got unconscious again, okay? So it's just about, oh yeah, I shot at someone. Okay, cool. Let me own that. I apologize. Cool. But when you move from unconscious to conscious, you unlock this mental prowess, which is the embodiment of a sovereign mind, which is individuality. So I help them become these individuals and stand in their truth and help them actualize what they want to achieve. So that's what the Anomaly Architect does. And without any worry what everyone thinks of them, because they know that their dream is bigger and is going to create more joy for the world than what someone thinks of their crazy idea.
Yes. The world is so ready for you right now. I think we are right on time, not only because we're seeing this huge conversation develop around mental health, but generationally, we see our young humans questioning a better way earlier. I talk about this a lot on Turmeric and Tequila, where they're coming in and they don't want to work 80 hours a week like their parents. They don't care about a Bentley with spinning rims or whatever. They might want those things, but they want their freedom. They care that their employer cares about them, or they just want to explore some of these ideas. I think they're less subject to conformity than perhaps we were in our generation. And I absolutely still think conformity happens, but I think they're more open to your conversation than we ever have before. I do think I'm assuming there's like a price point with that, like maybe an 18-year-old can't afford this kind of coaching or therapy, but at least they're set up with their mindset earlier. So then at maybe 35 instead of 45, they're approaching somebody like you to further harness their individuality and kind of gain and further distribute that skill set through whatever their purpose is or their individuality is. Do you have like, what is your clients right now? Is it older people? Is it younger people? Is it wealthy people? Like, I'm curious as to who's seeking you out or how they're finding you.
So my clientele, I mean, they all these anomalies, but let me tell you a secret. Every single human being is an anomaly if they choose to be, okay? And if you remove all the masks, if you remove all the conditioned programming, people can step out and create what they want to create. But my clients right now, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to have a massive impact by working with people who have influence within the most high pressure industries in the world. I mean, ages range from 30 to 65 years old, and these people have influence. And once they unlock their own mental and emotional prowess, they start to filter down into their organization. And I had a client who I worked with, and he had a team of, I think, 6 or 7 people, maybe 8. And his entire team was struggling with mental health issues before I worked with him. And after I worked with him, his entire team is no longer struggling with mental health issues. And that's the sort of impact. And then those people go to their families and they in their families. So it's this top down, up down sort of approach that I'm working with now, because to come in with what I'm saying at a lower level, people, they're going to be like, this guy's a bit crazy. But when I get to the people who have this influence and they're thinking a bit differently, they are willing to try these new things, and it works. It works so well when you just remove yourself from this and you own your individuality. There's no group without a strong individual. So that's my whole thing. And my whole thing is, we are going through a massive shift in consciousness right now. the world, everyone thinks this is a terrible thing, and yeah, it's terrible, whatever. But like, you can choose to be in it and be a victim of it, or you can choose to be a creator in this space. And when there are these massive things in history, when they change, like world wars and that, there's a shift in consciousness, and there's a shift in consciousness right now. And the world is changing. It's never going back to the way it was. Anyone who thinks it's going back to the way it was, they are in a massive illusion. We are moving forward into a whole new realm, and there's people that are who are becoming more conscious, and people who are becoming less conscious, and that's just polarities in the world. So what my role is increasing the consciousness of people who can have massive influence within the organizations, because my goal, I mean, this is my vision, is to change the education system, to get this mental and emotional prowess into the education system, so children are programmed and conditioned to believe in their sovereignty and in their power to make change where they want to make change, and to not sit in a situation that they don't like. And that would be so essentially finding these people, and ironically, all these clients of mine want to create charities within education. So this is where I'm going with this, in a bigger vision, and I will create it. I will do it.
I don't want to water this down, but to me, I'm so passionate what I do, because and a lot of it's around key community voices, influencers, people of power, because that's the business branding of that situation. But really, it's like a coach coaching kids, your parents, they're kind of the lead in your family community, like that third party endorsement. When you get the leader to understand, and the way they can reverberate, and that ripple effect goes out into their world, is extraordinarily powerful. And that's why I started this podcast, to start telling the truth, because I was working with companies where their truth didn't align with mine, so we couldn't work with them anymore. But more than that, I saw how branding and marketing was creating the realities of our young humans. They're digesting all this social media and all this BS and filters, and it's an unattainable goal, because it's smoke and mirrors. So when you talk about the reverberation, it quite literally is influencer marketing and what they're doing. So it's a casual branded take on what has always been around, like a formal word of mouth. Like that power and that endorsement is so powerful that we need, I will say, people like us that are responsible and conscious, moving that forward, and that opportunity to influence people in the right way. And most people don't understand that yet, but I really do have faith in our young people that they get it, and they're reading labels, and they're questioning that better way earlier, and they'll find conversations like these, and they'll seek out that higher consciousness naturally. So I'm with you that, we're going in one to two directions, but I really do have so much faith in our young people. And I love that you're talking about gracefully disrupting, I'll say, our school system, because I talk about that with nutrition, health and wellness, relationships, economics. Like, we need to disrupt our school system, so our kiddos are really given the tools to not just survive, but really thrive in life. So we don't have, suicides at 16 and all these like really heavy conversations that are happening so much earlier. When you're working with influencers and your business grows, do you have like any sort of strategic plan, like, or partners or anything where you can get to our younger people faster?
I don't have any strategic partners right now with regards to getting to younger people faster. And I think it's a great way to get into children. And at the same time, what you said there is that it needs to be a systemic change. The education system needs to change. The economic system everything's changing right now. People must understand, like, everything is changing. The systems are changing. So once we change it systemically, with people who want good for the world, right? And those people, so there are people with money who want good in the world. Money is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And when you work with those people who can influence that through their power for good, that's when you get, and there are thousands of people, there are probably millions of people that can do that. So we need to change the systems.
Yes. Well, I'm a big believer, and I want to highlight this. Within 10 months, you had your turnaround to where now you're fully thriving in your business. And I think a lot of people look at that and be like, oh, that's really quick to have, this full 180. We're on the flip side. Again, I'm spiritual, and I believe that when things are in alignment, the universe works with speed. Like, it's fast, it's quick. And I think people that, that they get married really quick, or they change job. Like, I think things can happen fast. And if it's happening fast, I always think that's such a phenomenal sign that you are in alignment and universe will provide. So I asked about the strategic partnerships, strategically so, because I think you can do all the things, but most importantly, it's about showing up. And if you get your energy right and you are in alignment, things will come to you. And a lot of my clients don't want to hear that. They want to know strategy and like hard numbers and how do we quantify this? And it's like, okay, I'll figure that. I'll put it on a paper. But really, I wholeheartedly believe that once you're channeling that energy and you're in your space, it will come. Have you seen things kind of come to you? Obviously, you're smart, educated, and you've run, corporate laps. You've got all this experience, but have things now just kind of come now that you're in alignment?
Yes, and the truth behind that is that you need both. You need the strategy, but without the alignment, the strategy won't work.
Right. Without
the strategy, the alignment will work. You'll get stuff in, but you won't excel as much as you can. But strategy and no alignment, nothing's going to happen. That's why you see thousands of people. I mean, you're in the branding and marketing world as well. Like, these guys promising all this thing, all these ads on Facebook and Instagram. Like, you got to do just these 3 steps to get, this, whatever, to have a 10K month, or to get 1,000 more followers. And it just doesn't work, because it worked for that person because that person was in alignment with what they were doing. And you can't just copy paste. And that's the problem. People try to mimic each other. Alignment happens when you are honest with yourself, and you'll feel it. It's congruence. It's in your body. You'll feel it. And so when you say something, your body will show it. So say you say to, I mean, this is the funny example. So say my wife comes to me and she goes to me, "Do you like my dress?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I mean, you can tell I don't like the dress, so why don't you just say the truth? And that's the congruence. So when you're speaking about your business, or you doing something in your business, or you're doing something in life, in a relationship, in your career, with your health, is it in alignment with you? And you'll feel it. And when you feel it, it's like it's this inner guidance GPS system that people don't even use. But when you start to listen to your emotions and feelings, again, there's a caveat here, not always, because there is some conditioning that you need to check and make sure that event is not being filtered through that conditioning. But generally, when you feel good about the decision that you're making in life, listen to your emotions. And when it doesn't feel good, check it. And yeah, I mean, I was blown away with the speed at which I did it. And when I started to learn and understand about, I mean, I've gone so deep into quantum physics, and it's not really woo-woo. The stuff people call woo-woo. It's not woo-woo, it's quantum physics. Right. And that's another thing it's the most researched science about emotions and frequency, more so than Newtonian physics, but it's not in schools because it empowers people. And this is the thing. So when alignment works because it's quantum physics. And they're proving this over and over again. There's so many. I mean, it started before Einstein. It started, I don't know. I think it started early 1900s, but Einstein then took it forward, and Max Planck, and then I've got guys like Joe Dispenza, Nassim Haramein, who are all pioneers in making quantum physics very simple. So it's not woo-woo. This stuff is real. It's real as anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, quite simply, I always say energy can't be created or destroyed. So if you don't believe in the woo, I kind of like the woo, but I'm with you. It is. It's science and it's proved. It's there. And I always just say, look at a lie detector test. Like, they can measure the way you feel about something, and if you're lying. So even if it's not fully digestible for my non-woo lovers, you can lean heavy into the science. It quite literally is. It's right there. Well, I want to be conscious of our time. We can go on. I absolutely love what you're doing. Do you have, I think people listening to this, I just have this gut feeling, they're going to be like, I identify with this. Like, I identify with me not fitting in, or me always doing something different. I think that tends to be my Turmeric and Tequila audience, because that's how I am. If they're in a pivot, or they're in life, like I've even had to recently lean into this, where I've been doing my own thing. My 18-year-old self was clear on we're just doing what I want to do. And it wasn't like this huge conversation around conformity. But as I've gotten older, I kind of check back in a bit. Like, no, stay your course, stay with it. If there's somebody out there that's kind of questioning a better way right now, they want to get out of their career, they want to make a move, what is your advice around a really good step one to make that change and start living in their truth?
Start listening to your heart. I think we live in our minds so often. And I mean, even that answer, that's the first thing that popped in my head. So I said that. I don't know. I don't know. And this is what we got to go with. And like, listen to your heart. And what I mean by that is actually spend time with your heart. Like sit down for 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes, not meditating. If you don't want to meditate, whatever that is, just sit with yourself for 5 minutes and just be with your heart, because your heart has got 40,000 neurites, which are brain cells essentially in your heart. And your heart sends more information to your brain than your brain does to your heart, the only organ in the body. So be with yourself and ask yourself questions. Self-inquiry is the key. Ask yourself the questions. What would happen if I continue to do this? What won't happen if I continue to do this? And write the answers down, and then assess and feel. But interrogation and feeling, those two things, I think. Honesty.
Yeah. I love it. Perhaps our brains are from the same island or star or whatever, because everything, I always say, follow your heart. And I usually say it like jokingly, like if they're like, I want these chips or those chips, I'm like, follow your heart. But I really do mean it. It's like, just do what you want to do, because it'll streamline so much process if you just follow your truth versus like try and do all these other things. And I only say that because I've taken like the hard path so many times, and it's like, oh, I should have just did what I wanted to do from the get-go. But
I'll tell you one more thing that is super powerful, and something that I'm researching, but I know new research. But the truth always speeds up time. When you're honest with yourself, you create time. People complain about being busy the whole time. It's because they're lying to themselves every single day of their lives. The truth speeds up time. When you're honest with yourself, you find solutions. You don't worry about problem investigation. You just find the truth, and I did that. Okay, cool. Move on. Let's find a solution. Accept awareness, acceptance, choice. The truth speeds up time every single time.
I love it. How long, just out of curiosity, are you working with someone? Is it like 6 sessions or 6 weeks, or is it all dependent on what their goals are?
Yeah. So generally what happens is I'll work with the client for a month first to sort of do their entire, or like connect with them at a deep level. And then if we're a good fit during that month, then there'll be a 3-month container or a 6-month container. It's very flexible though. It completely depends on the client. Not like one product for every single one, because everyone is different and there's no one solution fits all. But generally it's like a 1-month container before I take them in for any longer. And then if they need 2 sessions a month, or they need 4 sessions a month, and then my higher end clients, they'll get access to me via WhatsApp and phone calls when they need me. So yeah, it's very, very flexible.
It depends.
Depending on what the client needs.
I love that. And I got to say, when you are in alignment, it's pretty beautiful how much you can serve the world, but how much the world serves you. And my shallow end example of that is like when I was a great lacrosse player, played D1 lacrosse, but I was actually a better lacrosse player once I graduated and I started coaching, and coaching made me such a better player. Do you think now that you get a coach and lead, that it's made you more dialed in of a human, or a more varsity level human? Now that you've got to be able to be in your truth, live it, and then serve the world?
Yes, because I have to live in integrity. So what I coach, I have to live, and I love it, because every single day I'm learning about myself. And I think that the greatest gift you can give to yourself is to learn about yourself, and to remove all these shackles of limitation and conditioning and programming that are keeping you small. So yeah, I push boundaries, and I have to live what I tell my clients. I can't not do it. I can't, because then you're out of integrity and there's no point coaching. So I think any good coach worth their salt is living what they are teaching and leading with. So I like to lead before I coach anything. I'm doing it before I even coach it, because I need to lead, and I'm not trying to look at what other people are doing. I'm just leading, and they then will see me, and then in that moment on the call, they'll feel it, and they'll be happy to do that or try that, because they can feel that I'm doing it too. It's not just do this technique or this tool, because that shit doesn't work for the time that you're in the room,
Yes. What a beautiful process. Like how it all circulates and feeds everything around you. And we all reverberate positive energy. Then I do have to ask you one more question, because it just came to me, and we're talking about kiddos. You kind of spoke that, you had your conversation around your mom and your family. I think all of us can blame our parents for so many things. And again, you got to get out of victim mentality and take your onus on things, especially as you get an adult. We can't be blaming our childhood fully forever. how are you going to raise your kiddos different? I know this could be a whole podcast in itself, but I'm really curious, since you are so down and aware with all these tools, like, are you going to be hitting them at 0 years old of like mental prowess? Like, how are you going to like infiltrate their world casually? I want to say.
I'm going to empower them to make their own choices and to decide what they want to do, because I think that when the way that I was brought up, and not just from family, even though they were doing the best they were with the resources that they had available, they wanted the best for me, but the system was set up to force you into boxes. Everyone must be good at maths and science, and accounting, and then go into corporate and it's all shit. No. For me, it's going to be like, okay, what do you want to do? Okay, with guidance, obviously, but empower them to have their own original thought. That's all I'll do. It's like, what are you thinking? Why are you thinking that? What are you feeling? Why are you feeling that? It's okay to feel that. I'll also empower them to feel the feelings that they have, because young boys and young girls suppress their emotions, and it ends up in trauma later on, and this heap of just emotional turmoil in their lives. So for my children, I'm actually quite excited to have children. Hopefully, we'll probably try and have kids in the next sort of 2 years. Okay. So I'm quite excited about that. But it'll definitely be the original thoughts and empowering them to think for themselves and not to outsource their thinking, even to me.
Yeah. I love it, dude. You're right on time. I really can't wait to see how this progresses and the ripple effect to your immediate surroundings, and see how it grows. I know that the world needs this. I know you know that, obviously, but it's so beautiful to see humans in alignment and with like a really original take. And yet it's kind of been there all along. And the world. So, I mean, you couldn't be more on time. So there's just something, I believe in larger order and bigger things. As we talked about, you got to show up, you got to be intentional, and universe, God, Madonna is out there and like putting things in play. And then you just got to show up and you got to let the light shine. So I'm pumped to see what happens next and where you go and how this evolves. Where do people find you? Hit me with websites, Instagrams, anything you want to share.
Yeah. So my website is still not up. I'm busy working on some new branding, but you can get me at my email address, which is hi@troymcteer.com, TROYMCTEER.com, or on Instagram, which is at Troy McTeer. Instagram or LinkedIn, same thing, and Facebook, all same thing, Troy McTeer. Instagram is probably the best, or LinkedIn.
Perfect. If you're questioning a better way and any of this resonates with you, which I think it will, because if you're listening, you're probably like me. And this speaks to my heart on so many levels. So check out what Troy has going on. I think it's very trend setting and cutting edge. And yet, if you get it, you get it. So check out what he has going on if you're looking to get into alignment and get to the next level. Troy, anything else we need to know about you, what's coming up or anything like that?
About me, what's coming up? No, I'm just going to be getting on as many podcasts as I can to share my message and, help I will empower people to think for themselves, own the truth about themselves, and take personal responsibility. The first thing is personal responsibility for everything in your life, and get honest with yourself, because the truth will speed up time.
Boom. There you go. Well, Troy, I certainly appreciate you. And as I said, I can't wait to see what happens next. Please take care of yourself and absolutely keep in touch.
Thank you so much. It was so nice chatting to you. Lots of love. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy.